Alright, no intro for this one. We're just going to go straight in using a zenithal highlight, painted him all black, and then sprayed him from white from the top down. And now I'm not going to do him, the Tinkerer, anything like the actual game art. Instead, I'm going to make him look a little like Greedo from Star Wars. So I'm starting out with some warg flesh, making him dark green, and then we're using black leather to paint his, I guess it's like a skirt. I think it's like a leather skirt that he's wearing. Maybe it's a jacket that comes up. I don't know. This model is really difficult to tell what is what on it. While I really loved playing the Tinkerer in Gloomhaven, I think that this model is probably one of the worst casted ones. So I also painted his backpack in that leather. And then here I'm trying to figure out what is even what on this model. So I'm just sort of looking back and forth, going, I don't know what to do here. This is Iroko, which is a very beigeish, tan, very light color. And I wanted to make kind of like a white jumpsuit. I am washing his skin in Biel-Tan green. The good thing is that if you don't care about getting this one to the highest quality of model that you've ever seen before, you can get him done really quickly because he's so tiny. I now washed all of the Iroko, so all of the jumpsuit portion, in Seraphim Sepia, which then I'm going to highlight up from there. The center section, that is like kind of gold-plated armor. And again, it's just like so muddy and hard to see what you're even doing. So good luck with no matter what color scheme you use trying to make him look like anything. Flat green here. I'm dry brushing the flat green onto his skin, which is just his face. You can't see skin anywhere else on the model. And then P3's Wurm Green as a dry brush after that. The model, or the game art, makes him look sort of like a little monkey. So maybe he's like maybe you would use some browns and tans. That's really the only thing that you would change. The rest of him I painted to look like the game art. It's just his skin tone I decided to go with, sort of like a Greedo look. And I'm using lemon yellow and hitting all of the little lumps and bumps that are on his head to try to make a, real bright highlight. Going back to the Iroko to lighten up everywhere that the Seraphim Sepia had stained down. And again, I really love Gloomhaven, and I really love the Tinkerer. He was so much fun to play, but this model was not cast very well. Brown leather is the next step of the highlight. Pretty much painted on as if you were highlighting anything. It doesn't really become special in the way that you highlight leather until the next step. This one you're going to paint as if you were highlighting anything you've ever painted before. Just anywhere that isn't a deep shadow, we'll get that. Now I'm taking Ivory, and that is going over all of the jumpsuit now, trying to bring it into that white spectrum. So let me know down in the comments below what if you've painted this model, what color scheme did you use? Or if you were going to paint a model, this same guy, the Tinkerer, what color scheme would you use? I'm using black here for he has one set of eyeglasses that he's actually wearing, and then he has another one that's on that are goggles that are on the top of his head. So I'm just painting both of them in black. Also, let me know, by far, what are the worst models of any game that you've gotten so far? Because I think these are better than the ones that I got in Fantasy Flight's Mansions of Madness. I think the Mansions of Madness are by far the worst sculpted ones that I've had. Now, I've had game pieces that are worse, but I think when it comes to actual ones that are supposed to be paintable models, I think Fantasy Flight's ones for Mansions of Madness were sculpted the worst. I think the Tinkerer is so far the worst that I've come across in this game, while the Brute was actually really well done, I think. So real quick, that was some brown that I painted over his eyeglasses, and then I used Azure as the lens because it's kind of like a glowing blue. Now we're starting on the brown leather up on the, orange leather up on the actual leather. And this you're going to actually do from the outside, like an outside in. You are not going to be highlighting this how you do normally. So at the very top, I'm sort of painting, and then I'm coming in edge highlighting everything. You're also going to use very small strokes rather than long strokes when doing that. Now taking white and putting white right in the center of both lenses to make them look like they're on and glowing, because the Tinkerer is sort of a steampunk sort of character. And here's Iroko. Iroko is the same color that I used for the jumpsuit in the beginning. It works really well for highlighting the leather. Going around the outside again, and just picking up, trying to make the edges look more frayed and old. And the way you do that is, as you can see, I'm just sort of tapping with vertical strokes rather than doing horizontal long strokes. Now it's time for base coating the armor, which is basically the whole center of his body, and I'm doing that in gold. Now the best way to get gold to look not so garish and ridiculous and actually look sort of like realistic gold is you have to wash it with Agrax Earthshade. And I should have put more than one coat. I only did one coat of the Agrax Earthshade, and I think it was a little bit too thin. I should have done a couple of coats and really darkened it down. You can also use purple, so Druki Eye Violet if you wanted to use GW, if you want to use a different brand, just some sort of purple washes. Those work really well as well. And you can also use those simultaneously. I shouldn't say simultaneously, because you don't want to do it at the exact same time, but you could do it, do the Agrax Earthshade, let it dry, and then do the purple over that. That actually looks pretty good and probably would have made this stand out even a little bit more. I'm using the gold again to come back, and I'm using gold as a highlight now, so I'm just picking out the center of each sort of plate and the top areas here. Now I'm using silver, and silver is going to be the absolute highlight. So these are just going to be the very center of the top shoulder pads, and then lined across a couple of the plates that are in the brightest area and around where the light would catch the most. And I'm using Mechanicus standard gray here to paint up the crossbow that's on his right arm, and then he also has a couple of little like metal steel looking tubes that are coming out of the backpack, so I'm painting those as well. And I put black on the bottom of his feet. I don't know what I was thinking this would look like, but I'm also, putting in my failures here so that you can see what not to do. The black on the bottom of the feet looks kind of fine right now. Like, you're looking at it, you're like, yeah, it doesn't look that bad. In person, it looks terrible. It really wasn't a good idea. I should have done brown for sure. The black just looks kind of ridiculous. Here I'm just highlighting up all of the arrows that are on the what is that called? The crossbow that's on his arm. I'm using some wolf gray to just sort of pick those areas out, make them a little bit brighter. I wasn't going to spend the time to try to do a non-metallic metal or anything like that on something so small and something that's kind of undefined as well. Use flat red here to paint the bottom third or 2/3 of the potion that he's holding. So he's holding like a potion in his hand, and I just used the red to make it look like a potion.
Is that supposed to? Is that supposed to be less?
Is it not?
intrusive or more. Next I'm using flat blue, and this is watered down pretty heavily. And I glazed it a couple of coats over the little symbol that's in the center of his chest that's glowing. It's almost like an Iron Man power core that's in there. So I glazed that on a couple of coats and just let it dry, and then come back and do it again, because we want a really dark layer of light to be going across it first, and then we're going to brighten it up, and that'll make it look like it's glowing. Here I'm using wolf gray to just tap a couple of the little parts that are supposed to be shiny metallic. And then here we come in with the Azure, doing the exact same thing, but focusing more on the center and also making sure that more of the color picks up. And that way we get it to look like it's glowing. Then of course hitting it with some white in the center, and that really makes it stand out. And then the reason I tap it like that is because the white by itself is really, really bright. If you tap it like that, it kind of dulls it out. I think blends it in a little bit better. I also use the white to line the edges and the top of the glass bottle to make that kind of finished off. And really then all you got to do is paint the sides and the base that he's standing on, and you're done. I mean, overall you didn't turn out terrible with what I was working with, but I do think that his sculpt leaves a lot to be desired. But thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video if you did like the video, and let me know what character from Gloomhaven you would like me to paint next. I greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all next time. New outro, I know. If you want to watch more in this series, click right here. If you would like to watch another video in a completely different series, click right here. And if you'd like an easy way to subscribe, other than clicking down below, even though it's right there and it says subscribe, you can click on this little picture right here. That also works.